Hi, Donna. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how's your morning going so far? Or are you morning? Yeah, you're morning, right?
Yeah, I'm morning. Yep. Yeah, it's
You're in
about
BC.
9:30 here and it's
Okay.
a beautiful day.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to meet you and to talk to you. And a very long time ago, I had a friend that was into Ayurveda. I can't say the
Mhm.
word. I can never say the word. And I don't really know much about it, but
Okay.
she swore by it. And so
Mm.
I was thinking we could just dive right in and maybe you can tell us a little about yourself and your practice and explain how you discovered Ayurveda and how it maybe helped you and how you use it with your clients. I know that's a big loaded question, but
Yeah, I'll see if I can remember all of them. But
okay.
yeah, so basically I'm a yoga teacher. I've been a yoga teacher for about 20 years now, and Ayurveda is known as yoga's sister science. So it
Oh,
actually comes from the same place that yoga comes from, the ancient text called the Vedas. So it's over 5,000 years old, and it's the oldest healing science, like written healing science in history.
really?
Yeah, so it comes from India. It has stood the test of time. And what's really cool is now science is proving everything that Ayurveda has been saying for thousands of years. And
Oh,
it's connected to circadian science. So I don't know if you're familiar with circadian science, but it's really all about the understanding of the rhythms of nature and how what's happening in nature is influencing us. And one of the principles of Ayurveda is that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So everything that's happening in nature, in the environment, is happening on a micro level inside of our own bodies. So it's all about understanding how we're affected by these rhythms and cycles and how we can align to these cycles to be able to heal faster and have more energy, better health, find more balance, more flow, thrive, increase longevity. So that's kind of one of the main ideas of Ayurveda is really, understanding our relationship with nature and how energy works and how nature works and how we work and how our bodies work. So the word Ayurveda actually it breaks down into two parts. Ayur means uh, life, and Veda means knowledge, science, or truth. So it's like the science of life. And one of my favorite ways to, or one of my favorite definitions is the art of living. So it really is like this guidebook or handbook for how to live, how to be in a human body, how to organize ourselves in our days, in our daily routines to be able to function at the highest level and to truly thrive. So it's all about, preventing disease and sickness instead of, what modern science and modern medicine is all about is like once you're sick, how do we treat it?
yes.
Ayurveda is all about how do we prevent it in the first place and be able to, avoid imbalances. And then when we do have imbalances, understand what the root cause is instead of just treating the symptom, which is, again, one of the things that modern medicine really focuses on. So those are some of the things that I really love about it, that it's preventative, it gets to the root cause, it's very holistic. It also understands that our body, our mind, our spirit, it's all connected. And so when we're looking at someone and trying to figure out what the root cause is, we look at the whole picture. It's like, what are your relationships like? What's your environment like? Obviously, what are you eating? What are your routines like? What are your stress levels like? So all of it, what's the mindset like? How are you feeling emotionally? And when we get like that whole picture, we can really see how everything could be contributing to the issue that you're struggling with.
I love
So
that. You're
that's a
speaking
little
my
bit of like a,
language.
in a nutshell, what Ayurveda is.
Yeah.
And so how I came to it is 10 years ago as a yoga teacher. Again, it's because they're sister sciences. You hear a lot about Ayurveda when you're learning about yoga. And so
Okay.
I had heard about it. I was kind of familiar with the word. I didn't know much about it. Initially, I was really interested in using it in a way to like, what are, alternative ways to deal with colds and flus, or how to use food as medicine and
Yes.
kind of that approach.
And I've always been interested in like natural health and healthy eating and things like that. So I enrolled in a program to learn more. And what I actually learned was how to change my habits and how to really optimize my daily routine. So before Ayurveda, I think of my life as like before Ayurveda and then after Ayurveda. So before Ayurveda, I found it when I have two boys, and when my sons were really young, and I was a stressed out, exhausted, overwhelmed mom trying to navigate motherhood and life. And I was living in New York City when we had our first son, and we moved to a small town in BC, Canada. So that was like a huge transition for me. And I grew up in Houston and then New York. So I've always been in really big cities. And so I was like culture shock. And I was really struggling to fit in. I was feeling really depressed and lonely and exhausted because I wasn't sleeping, stressed out because I was trying to start my yoga teaching practice from scratch. And I was doing my yoga every day, and thank God, because that really helped me. But it wasn't enough. I would do my yoga, I'd feel great. And then 30 minutes later, I was back to feeling stressed out, exhausted. And I kept wondering, like, what is wrong? Like, if I take a look at my life, everything's fine. I'm a yoga teacher. I love my job. I have a great family.
Yeah.
I live in a beautiful place. What's missing? And so I really just was seeking some clarity and really trying to feel better. And then when I started learning about Ayurveda, I started just slowly shifting my daily habits. So it started with just eating dinner a little bit earlier and then going to bed a little bit earlier. Before I was, my kids would go to bed and then it was my time. So I would, get on the computer or, spend a lot of time in front of screens and wake up late and then struggle to get up in the morning. And I was always complaining that I didn't have enough time. I didn't have time for me. I didn't have time to exercise. And I just felt like my life was not mine. My time was not mine. And I just didn't feel like I was in control of my life anymore. So as I took control of my habits and, as I started going to bed earlier, I was waking up earlier. I created this amazing morning routine with exercise and meditation and journaling. And I started to just clean up my diet. I gave up most sugar at that time. When I started, I gave up probably like 85%. Now I'm down to pretty much zero. And that was, before I was a huge like sugar addict and wine every night and 4 cups of coffee in the morning. And so I was able to just let a lot of these things go naturally as I kind of created more balance in my daily routine. And obviously I had a ton of physical benefits. So I had more energy. I stopped getting sick. I used to get colds that would last for like 2 weeks at a time. Even though I was doing yoga, even though I was eating healthy, I just, with more energy, stronger immune system, I was suffering postpartum depression, and that completely went away. I felt less stressed, more balanced. But the biggest change that I experienced was, for the first time in my life, I really had a sense of purpose and clarity about what I wanted to do with my life. And before that, I really didn't know. I was just kind of like going with the flow. I guess I'll teach yoga. Seemed like, the next thing to do. I liked yoga. I'll become a teacher, but it wasn't really it. And so when it changed my life so drastically, I was like, everyone needs to know about this. And I started teaching people Ayurveda, and I started helping people create these daily habits and routines. And I started to see their lives change. And what's amazing is like just these daily habits, these very simple, very basic, very practical ways of structuring your day solved so many issues for people. I mean, weight loss without dieting, finally sleeping through the night and overcoming like a lifetime of insomnia, getting off anti-anxiety pills and antidepressants, skin issues, digestive issues. And really, it's like these habits, they take care of like 95% of issues. And so
that's kind of always where you start. It's like, first, let's just figure out the daily routine. And then if that doesn't take care of it, then we can start to get a little bit more nuanced and, but I mean, most of what we're suffering from is completely preventable through healthier lifestyle and diet.
Wow.
And it's really about learning how to change. So I have a background in psychology, and I've always been interested in behavior and why we do what we do. So for me, a big part of this was not only helping people, like telling people what to do. And, that information is out there, like Google what to do, and you'll find all the things. But the biggest challenge for people is how to actually change and how to build new habits and how to break old habits and how to bridge the gap from, that having intentions and goals and actually taking action and following through. So that's like the other thing I'm completely obsessed with. Like one part is the Ayurveda itself and like, health and what we can do to optimize health. And the other part is behavioral change and how to actually make the changes we want and change habits and change our brains and, neuroplasticity and all of that stuff. So I love to bring those two worlds together to really give you, the whole support you need, all the support you need to go from where you are to where you want to be. So that was a lot. Hopefully I covered all the questions that you
did. That's fantastic. But you know what? I think you're my clone. I didn't know. I didn't know this was Ayurveda, but I gave up sugar like 22 years ago.
Amazing.
And I gave up meat, 11 years ago. I gave up alcohol in between those times. Mm-hmm. I have morning routines. I have healthy habits. Like my whole life is a big habit. Yeah. And I exercise daily and I eat healthy foods and I drink a lot of water. And it's like everything you just said, I do. And it's like, I didn't even know that that's what it was called. So I thought it was mostly like about eating. Like, what do I know? Because the person that did it was talking about your diet and doshas, or I don't even know what that is. But I thought that was most of it. But actually, it's the holistic everything that you do. So, wow, who knew? I was actually practicing this. Why don't people know about this and the name? Because I've told people, I was interviewing you today, and I was telling them about this subject, and they're like, "What's that?" And if it's been around for 5,000 years, why don't people know about it?
I know, and that's why when I learned about it, I was like, more people need to know this because it is very simple. It's very practical. Everyone can do this stuff. I mean, these are like really basic daily habits, and diet is a part, but it's not the whole thing. So it's like the timing of things. It's like when you're waking up, when you're going to sleep, when you're eating. And that's kind of, you asked about the doshas. So the doshas are basically, they refer, when people talk about them in relation to Ayurveda, they refer to like, what's your dosha? It's like, what's your unique constitution? But now, the doshas are like
unique constitution.
So it's basically like it's like our physical and emotional and mental and energetic makeup. So basically there's 3.
Okay.
And the one of the principles of Ayurveda is that everything in life, in nature, is made up of the 5 elements. So earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But it's not actually these elements, it's the qualities of these elements. So it's, if we think of like earth, the qualities of earth are that it's heavy, it's grounded, it's slow, it's steady. And then water is, it's wet, it's fluid, it's malleable. Fire is hot, it's intense, it spreads, it's transformative. Air is, and I'm giving you like the really quick and dirty.
No, that's great.
Air is light, it's drying, it's mobile, it moves. Ether is vast, it's expansive, it's also very cold. So that's kind of the first level of understanding. And then it's understanding that certain of these elements just naturally go together and they just have an affinity to each other. For example, earth and water, they just go together, they create mud. And so when these elemental qualities combine, it creates the dosha called kapha. So kapha is the energy of structure. And
Oh,
certain people have a lot of kind of earthy, watery qualities physically, mentally, emotionally. So, for example, people with a lot of kapha in their constitutional makeup, they tend to be bigger boned. These are like the ectomorphs. The water is like, they have really moist skin. It's like their skin is just always glowing and always moist. They don't wrinkle as much. They might have like thick hair, maybe big eyes, big features, big lips. Also, in energetically, they might move slowly. They talk slowly. They walk slowly.
oh,
They learn slowly. They also are slow to forget. So they hold on to grudges. And what's interesting is they also hold on to stuff. These are like the hoarders. And these people, that steadiness shows up in daily routines. So these are the people that love routines and they stick to routines. They live in the same house their whole life. They have the same job their whole life. They don't like change. They resist change. It's like, these are the people that just, they have that steadiness, that consistency. They're also super loyal. That earthy kind of nurturing quality can show up as just they're very gentle and kind and nurturing and loving, and they're just there for you. They're the people that they like a warm hug. But when they're out of balance, they tend towards weight gain. They tend towards just like lethargy, malaise. They are the couch potatoes. They're unmotivated. They just tend to feel stuck and low and depressed. So that's like a picture of like a kapha dominant constitution. Now, the second one is when you combine fire and water. And in this case, it's less water, it's more like oil. So you can think of like gasoline or candle, like that kind of oil. And when you combine these two elemental qualities, you create the energy called pitta. And pitta is the energy of transformation, digestion, and metabolism. So people with a lot of pitta, they have a lot of these like fiery qualities. So physically, they are the medium build, the mesomorph. They usually have like pretty good muscle tone. Sometimes the fire can show up as red hair or like freckles or any redness in the complexion, like ruddiness, or even just kind of someone that's prone to a lot of like rashes and skin issues, inflammation. Again, it's like the fire quality. So energetically, they tend to be very sharp, very focused. These are like the high achievers, the overworkers. They're ambitious, they're passionate, they're driven, the type A's. They tend, when they're out of balance, they tend to be impatient, irritable. They can like lose their temper and get really angry and like fly off the handle and be sharp with it's like fire burns, right? So it's like they can just burn you with their words. They might just say something really critical. They tend to be critical, judgmental of themselves and other people. They can like make things happen. That transformative energy is really like they set a goal and they can focus and like, manifest that thing at all. It's like the bit they burn everything in their past. So it's like, get out of my way. And so they tend to like really not think about other people. It's all about like their agenda. What else about pittas? When they're in balance though, they're very charismatic. They're great leaders. They're great teachers. That fire of that transformative digestive energy, these people have like really strong digestions. They can eat anything. They have like a strong hunger. It's like both physically and mentally, like a hunger for, passion and goals and achievement.
yeah.
So that's pitta in a nutshell. I'm a dominant pitta. So then we have the third one is vata, which is when you combine air and ether. And so if you think of like qualities of airiness or spaciousness, these people have those qualities physically, mentally, emotionally. So physically, they are the lightest. So just by looking at you, you probably have a lot of vata in your constitution, smaller bones, thinner, tend towards dry skin. So that air, it's like, think of like wind that creates a lot of dryness, dry skin, dry hair, dry nails. Their appetite is variable. So sometimes there's just like no appetite. They forget to eat. And sometimes it's, they might experience like gas or bloating. That's like the air, literally.
Oh,
Mentally, they tend towards a lot of movement. It's like the wind. So they can be kind of all over the place, very scattered, very distracted. Like 1 minute they're in one direction, another minute they're in another direction, like the wind. And they can lose focus really easily. So they resist routine. So it's really hard for them to stick with things because they keep getting distracted by bright, shiny objects like squirrel. And so they have great ideas. They're very creative, but they can't stick to anything long enough to make it happen.
Okay.
So staying focused is a big challenge for Vatas. When they're out of balance, they tend towards anxiety, fear, nervousness. And in balance, they just have a lot of enthusiasm and excitement for life. Now, we have all of them, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to
We're
ask.
a combination. Yeah, we are a combination of all three, but it's just in different amounts. So usually we have two that are close together. So for me, I'm mostly Pitta and then secondary Vata. And I have just a small amount of the Kapha. Okay. So it's, and you can kind of have more of like a physical constitution and then a different mental constitution. So, it's not so clear cut. Everyone's different. Everyone has their unique makeup of the combination of these three energies or doshas. And you can easily find out what you are by doing a quiz online, and you can just Google what's my dosha and you'll get, the breakdown. So
what's my dosha?
Yeah.
Okay. Really?
Yeah. And there's like a million quizzes online. They're all free. And, you can just answer some questions. And the questions are based on like body characteristics, like physical characteristics, mental characteristics, all these kind of different tendencies. And then it'll tell you, what's your dominant, what's your secondary often. So.
Okay. So you go on what's my dosha, you find out, and then what do you do with the information?
Right. Okay. So the first part is, because we're all human in human bodies and we all have this connection to nature, it's the same in terms of daily routines, which makes it super easy, generally the same. So in terms of, so how the doshas relate to our daily routines is these doshas are inside of us in terms of our constitutional makeup, but they're also in nature and the different times of the day and different times of the year and in the different times of our life cycle. So if you think about fire, what's like the biggest element of fire that exists in nature?
The sun?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Phew.
So when is sun the highest in the sky?
When is it the highest in the sky? I think around noon.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that one, I like to start with that. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I know.
And this is how we can start to understand, okay, the sun, this fire energy is strongest in the middle of the day. That means that part of the day is governed by the Pitta dosha. So what that means is it's the energy of digestion. We have the strongest digestion in the middle of the day.
Really?
Yeah. And this means this is when we should eat our biggest meal, between 10 and 2. And in that like third of the daytime. And the word for Pitta is also means bile. So bile is what helps break down protein and fat. And we have the most bile in the middle of the day. And what happens is when the sun goes down, bile production goes down.
Oh.
Digestive capacity goes down. So the problem that we have as a modern, Western culture is that we eat our biggest meal generally at the end of the day. And we often eat late, or we'll do a lot of like late night snacking. And that is one of the worst things we can do for our digestion, because this is not when our body is meant to break down all of that food, like a big heavy meal. Have you ever had
people get a lot of heartburn? Why?
Yes,
the bed,
totally.
They have to sit up.
Exactly.
It's awful when people have that. Very
right.
uncomfortable. And that's from eating too much, probably at night, or too close to bed, or just eating way too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever had like a big meal and then woke up the next day and feel like it's still in your stomach? Like it's
Oh
like
gosh, yes.
still sitting there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it literally is. It hasn't fully digested. And, pre-industrial revolution, we used to eat our biggest meal in the middle of the day. We would come in from being in the fields and we would have a big meal, and then we'd have a little bit of a rest, and then we'd go back out when it wasn't so hot and we'd work, until the end of the day. And then we'd have just supper, like a soup, like a stew, something light, just to kind of tie us over to the next day. And our digestive fire is really like the sun. So in the morning, it's just waking up. And so breakfast shouldn't be too big. And then as the sun goes up, we get a stronger digestion. So that's the main meal. And then as it goes down, we want to have our dinner be a little bit lighter and definitely earlier. So 3 hours minimum before you go to bed.
Yeah.
So that's like the first thing I teach my clients is, let's make sure you're having lunch, because some people just don't even eat lunch. They skip lunch and maybe kind of snack a little bit throughout the day. And then they have this really big dinner. So I've had clients that just switch their lunch and dinner and just lose weight just by simply making that switch.
Really?
Yeah.
That
yeah.
makes
And
sense. That does make sense.
Yeah. And then cutting out the late night snacking. Cut off dinner time at 7 p.m. and then don't eat anything after that. So that's like the very first simple shift. And simple, is not always easy because there's a lot of factors that go into that. And that's what I help my clients of, like, troubleshooting. Okay, how do we actually make this happen? What needs to change? Because, parents that have like kids after school activities, for example, or it's like navigating the whole family dynamic and when everyone wants to eat and all of that. So, there's always things to strategize around when you're making these changes to your lifestyle, because unless you live alone and you have complete control over your schedule, we have, things that we have to kind of figure out in that process.
Yeah, because that would be hard if you have a family.
Yeah.
Do you suggest that the family eats like that along with you, or do you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's better for everyone, but again, it's not always possible. So
yeah, right.
I always say, look, focus on you first.
Yeah.
So that you can feel your best, and then you can even, be better for your family. And then they might come along, they might not, but the problem comes when we try to change other people and they don't want to change. And
exactly.
We know that doesn't work.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to make your own separate meal.
Yeah.
And
yeah, totally. Or eat at a different
family.
time, or exactly. So it's like the oxygen mask principle. It's, take care of yourself first before helping others. And then often, what I've had a lot of clients experience is they start to feel so much better. Their family notices and they're like, what are you doing? Or their coworkers notice, or their friends notice, and they're like, what's happening? You're glowing. You've lost all this weight. You look amazing. And so we can just be an example for others and an inspiration for the people in our lives. So
now, what's happened to you? Your whole personality's changed. What's going on?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one, one dosha that's how we can understand how to align with that. Another one is in the evening time between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. That time of day, I mean, if you think about when we prepare for when our body is getting ready to sleep, there's like a heaviness and we want to slow down, because that makes sense in terms of getting ready to sleep. So that is the energy governed by the earth and water elements called the kapha energy. And so the problem, what we do in our modern culture is, what do we do at night? Generally, most of us
watch TV.
Yes, we get in front of a screen and we stimulate. So that, the blue light stimulates, whatever we're watching can be stimulating, although we think of it as relaxing because we're not doing anything. It's like how a lot of people unwind, but it's not actually calming the nervous system. It's not like turning off the stress response. It's not preparing the body and the mind for sleep. It's doing the opposite, actually. So this becomes a problem because so many people have sleep issues. So many.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I find with so many people. In fact, I don't know anybody that doesn't.
Yeah.
I sleep pretty well. My husband sleeps really well, but most people I know do not sleep well.
Right, right. And that's because we're living in this very out of balance way. So that, that's the second thing that I focus on. It's like once we got earlier dinner down and you're eating, at the latest at 7, but I would even try to move that earlier. Like I love to eat between 5 and 6, and that's perfect. And so then it's like, what are you doing in the evening so that you are actually getting your body ready to sleep and you're not overstimulating? And this doesn't mean you never ever watch TV. It just means that you're mindful. And the thing is, we're all different. So if you have a lot of that earthy quality in you already, these people can their head hits the pillow and they're out. I wonder if your husband's more of that kind.
You know what, his name's Mark, but his nickname is Marcoma because he can sleep anywhere, anytime. He can sleep standing. And when he hits the pillow,
I wonder if he might have a lot of that kapha in his constitution.
He must, because I'm so jealous that he could just go to sleep through. No matter, he can drink coffee before bed.
Yeah, right.
I can't even drink coffee at all.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why it's not necessarily a one size fits all, because we're all different. So we all need different things to create balance. So a kapha person can probably watch violent TV until the moment they go to sleep and then be able to fall right asleep. Whereas someone with a lot of vata would not be able to do that. They would just be so revved up that they would be tossing and turning all night.
Yeah, a long time ago, I think I started when 9/11 happened. I couldn't watch the news at night anymore. At night, meaning before bed. I'll watch it for an hour, maybe at 5, but I couldn't watch it anymore before bed. And so since then, I have not. That's not something I want to go to sleep with,
No.
And we do have a TV in our room, I have to admit, but we usually just go right to sleep. And before we go to sleep, there's comedy on, the comedy reruns. We laugh most of the time and then go to sleep. So it's a great way to go to sleep if you have a TV.
Totally.
I know that's a no. But I was going to ask you.
Well, so it's a great stress reliever.
What?
It's a great stress reliever, laughing.
I think so. We're always laughing. But good. So for people who want to watch their shows, would you tell them to watch it during the day or on weekends?
Well, no, not necessarily. Morning? So for me, I really just try to not watch every night, because the thing is with TV, it's so compelling, and they put billions of dollars into getting you to watch as much as possible.
Yes.
So especially series, they put the cliffhanger at the end, and you have to know what's in the next episode. So this is what gets you watching and binge watching and spending hours watching. So I would say number one is being honest with yourself of is it affecting your sleep? Are you noticing that? Because some people just haven't really made the connection between these different things and sleep. So do you need to maybe turn it off an hour before sleep and then really do something that's more relaxing in that hour right before? So just kind of move it earlier. And then maybe you have a bath, or maybe you actually read a book, because that can, help you fall asleep. Or maybe you do some stretching, or I love to foam roll. There's so many different things that feel relaxing and help your body get relaxed, help your mind get relaxed. But it's not only, and that's the thing, it's sleep isn't just about what you do right before bed. It starts when you wake up. Your optimal sleep routine starts in the morning, from the first thing you do when you wake up. So when I'm helping people with sleep, it's we have to look at the whole picture. It's not just what are you doing, in the evening time.
Yeah. And I think we sleep pretty well because we get up every morning somewhere between 5 and 6, and we exercise for a couple hours, both of us, every single day. So by the time we go to bed around 10, we're tired. Our bodies are tired. Our minds are tired, and we go to sleep. And even if I don't sleep, I still get up. We both are like this. If for some reason we don't sleep because the dog did something in the house or whatever, we have to keep getting up. We still get up at the same time tired and work out, because it makes us rest at night.
Yeah.
So, and then
Yeah,
also
absolutely.
you said something about, turning off the TV and doing something relaxing, but that doesn't mean getting on your phone
Right.
on
It's the
another
same thing.
screen.
It's basically another screen. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's like and this is where, people struggle with making those changes because that kind of stuff there's an addictive nature to that stuff. So it's like quitting a
Yeah,
bad
it's
habit.
hard.
It is hard. And so, there's a lot to actually making those shifts. It's not so easy as like, oh, I'll just change that. I'll just stop doing that. Because, our brains like to just maintain homeostasis. Like our brains it's easier to keep doing the same thing every day than it is to change, as anyone that's ever tried to make a change can attest to.
Yeah.
So that there's one more thing I just want to say about that. Evening time is 10 p.m. is the witching hour, because that's when it switches from this like heavy energy to the second cycle of fire energy. It's between 10 and 2, and the nighttime is the second pitta cycle. So have you ever noticed that if it's after 10, you might get a second wind? And all of a sudden it's like you're awake. And not only are you awake, but it's like we might want a snack. And that's, again, the worst time to snack. So what I've noticed now that I, know this stuff and I'm really aware, I will feel, and maybe you've noticed this, it's like 8:30 and you feel really tired. And you're like, oh my gosh, I could totally go to sleep, but you don't. And you stay up. And then after 10, it's like, bing, you're awake, second wind. And then it's much harder to fall asleep. Then you can toss and turn and not be able. So for me, I can feel that shift in energy. And I know if I am not asleep by 10, then I am screwed and I'm going to be like laying awake in
Really?
bed for, yeah. Yeah. So that's the second thing, is like bed by 10. And it's not on the dot. It's like kind of in that range. And it also shifts slightly according to, the time of year. In the winter time, it's obviously a bit earlier. In the summertime, it's a little bit later. So
Yeah, and you're like us, like I'm in Washington State.
yeah, I'm
So
in
you've got
DC.
it gets dark around
Right.
10 right
Yeah,
now.
I know. So
So
late.
that used to be a real problem for me, but we
Mhm.
definitely closed the blinds and were
Yeah,
able to deal with it. But when I first moved here a very long time ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, how does anybody go to sleep at 10?
I
It's still
know.
light.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have blackout curtains for a long time. And it was so bright. It was just, oh, it's so hard to go to sleep when it's bright out.
Yeah, it really
Yeah,
throws you off.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's another just way we can understand that, like, these environmental and these, energies of these different times, they can really affect our bodies. And again, in circadian science, they've shown how organs have these like internal clocks, and there's like things that turn off and turn on at specific times. So it's understanding how all of that works, and then being able to align what you're actually doing with these different energy cycles.
Now, what about people who suffer from SAD, seasonal affective
Yeah, yeah,
disorder? Is that what it's called?
yeah, yeah,
Is that
yeah. So
that's
I
a
mean,
real
again,
thing, right?
oh, for sure, yeah. And I think, again, it's like the first thing is like, these habits in place, because again, that just shifts a lot. And then I would say, there's additional things to do. So it can be tough, especially if you live in a place where, like, we have a lot of cloud cover where we are in the winter time, and
Yeah.
it's just, there's not a lot of sun. And
Right.
so if you need to, get some light therapy or do something like that, but exercise really helps. There's other things you can do for depression that really can support you in that time. And it can be tough though, because it's like that depression causes this lack of motivation. So
Right.
it can be harder to get yourself to exercise and do some of those things, but it really can make a huge difference of just staying balanced during that time of year, and not kind of downward spiraling where you just kind of let everything go, and that just makes everything even worse, because you're not moving your body, you're not eating healthy, you're not doing these things that can really support your mental health. So
Yeah, and we had a very long winter,
mm,
know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I was affected by it. I'm never like, I like all the seasons and I like the bad weather. I like all this stuff, but
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't. But this time, I was really getting to me because it just went on forever. So I'm
Yeah,
really
I know.
enjoying the sun right now in the
Me
spring.
too.
Yeah,
Me too. Yeah, I'm not a fan either.
yeah.
I'm it always feels long to me. It's always like, oh my gosh, I'm ready. I'm so ready for the sun. I'm ready for summer. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's so short when we have it.
Yeah. So the people who you've helped,
Mhm.
there, and I know there's a ton. Can you tell us some befores and afters, maybe?
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, it's, I've had people lose, 20 pounds in 3 months just really by creating these shifts in when they're eating and, you know, how they're eating and also these routines. And I had a client that had lifelong insomnia, and just by moving her dinner time earlier and her bedtime earlier, she was finally sleeping like 7 hours straight in the night.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, yeah. And again, like I said, people getting off anti-anxiety pills, depressants, people with like lifelong digestive issues completely gone. Because one of the things that Ayurveda focuses on a lot is digestive health and gut health. And that's also why it's not just about what you're eating. That's only part of it. It's
Yeah.
when you're eating. That is such an important piece that people, don't pay attention to. It's like snacking through the day is not great for digestion, eating too late at night, eating too often. So eating standing up, eating on the go, eating rushed, eating fast, eating distracted, all of these things affect how your body digests food. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's not even so much that we need to change what we're eating. It's just how and when we're eating.
Yeah, I
So,
sometimes have a problem with digestion, and
mm,
I catch myself. I think I'm just eating too fast.
yeah,
And yesterday I'm like, oh my God, I feel ugh. And so
yeah,
I ate really, and I chewed my food.
yes,
It's
exactly.
so boring to chew your food that long. But I
But it
did
really
it
does make a
yesterday
difference.
because I caught myself and I actually felt better. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a quote in Ayurveda that is, it's like chew your liquids and what is it? It's something like basically chew your foods until they become liquid.
Yes. And it
And
makes you eat less too. Because you're like, my
yeah, it
God, I'm
slows you
never going
down
to get
and
through this bowl of whatever because I'm
right.
taking 5 minutes to take one bite.
Yeah. And that's
But it
like it takes
helps. It does help.
right. It does. It really does. It takes 20 minutes for your body to even process full. So when you're eating fast, you could be overeating because it just takes time for your body to realize that it's full. But when you slow it down, then you might, you have obviously less tendency to overeat because it'll take you longer to get to that 20-minute mark, or you'll eat less in that 20-minute period.
It just
So
tastes so
eating,
good. So you just want
yeah,
to just get it down and have the next bite.
yeah. And that's something I've had to teach myself. My husband eats really fast.
Oh,
So I've kind of unconsciously try to keep up with him. And so I've had to really just like not pay attention to him and put my fork down between bites and really chew
oh,
slowly.
yeah.
So
You put your fork down. Oh,
that's
my,
a helpful tip,
get a
by
good
the
arm
way.
workout.
Yeah.
Wow. I
And
don't think
sitting
I could.
down too.
Oh
Sitting
my.
down when you're eating is a really important
Oh,
one.
sit
Sometimes
down. Yeah.
yeah,
I know
yeah,
people stand while they're eating. I want to relax while I'm eating,
me
but
too.
still I tend to go fast. I think I heard before that you should listen to, if you're going to listen to music, it shouldn't be fast music
Mm,
because you eat along with the music. I've heard that
interesting.
before.
So
Have you
maybe
heard
that would be a helpful way to slow down is eating or listening to some slow music.
that? Yeah. Now, what about stuff for things that are fermented? Are
Mm,
those like
yeah.
I've been looking into sourdough bread
Mhm.
lately. You know how people you may make your own. I know
Yeah.
people that do this, and I haven't done it yet because it sounds like, oh my gosh, it's such a process. But
Yeah.
I just recently discovered I was going to do a a video on this. I recently discovered that if you buy sourdough bread from the grocery store, it's not the authentic.
Sourdough is really,
because they put extra stuff in it, and because they do it in bulk and they got to go fast. So I've been looking into that and about the glycemic index and about how the bread that you buy at the grocery store, the sourdough, it's supposed to be the healthiest, has no effect on the glycemic index. Like, it's not low, but if you make your own and you do it with just the basic ingredients, I know this is going way off here, but
that's okay.
I was just wondering, what do you think about that, about fermented
I think fermented
sourdough bread?
For all fermented foods are a great way to support healthy gut bacteria. So definitely, that's something I always recommend, whether that's sauerkraut or miso, or, there's so many different things, other fermented foods. Sourdough is one of them. There are bakeries that do it the authentic way. And it might be like, if you don't want to make your own, I know just here in town, there's some places that are like true authentic sourdough, and they really take the whole like slow process, which you're absolutely right. That's completely true, where the grocery store stuff is like speeded up. So it's actually doesn't have as much of that true sourdough as traditional sourdough is. So, and apparently it removes the gluten in it. Like that sourdough process removes the gluten. I think it's definitely the healthiest choice when it comes to bread, but making sure that it is like the traditional way and the slow fermented. But you could always just do some research and find, if you didn't want to go through or start learning how to do it, because for me, it's like, I don't have the time. I'm not going to start breaking my own bread.
It's just a really long process. I'm reading about the starter, and it has to eat the stuff. I'm like, what does that mean? It needs to eat it. But I've been looking into it, and I thought, should I go to a bakery and bring my list of questions? They might get a little annoyed with me. Like, how do you really make it? Is this whole wheat? Because I heard the whole wheat's better. But then I don't know what they would say if I walked in, but I can try. That would be a challenge I would have for myself, to just go in and
like if you didn't want to, some people want to learn how to do it. And I know in COVID, that was like a thing that a lot of people got into, is making sourdough. So if it's like for fun, like if you think it'd be fun, go for it yourself. If you're just really wanting to have the health benefits and you don't want to go through that process, I'm sure if you find like an artisanal type bakery in town, that's like, you can see it's like the crusty bread. It's very like, it's that style. Sometimes you can just tell when it's that really kind of country style, crusty, that's probably more likely to be the authentic sourdough. And I would just ask them, and they will probably know if you just say, is this like authentic, like slow sourdough? I don't know. I've never.
And they said you could go to farmers markets too.
But
then I would have my list of questions. Okay. I always have a list of questions. I'm always questioning everything.
It's great. It's good quality.
Go and annoy people, but
Yeah.
So, and then other fermented foods are good for your gut health.
Even like yogurts, even if it's like I don't really eat a lot of dairy, but like a coconut yogurt or but kombucha even, but people tend to overdo kombucha.
Oh, they do? Overdo it? Like
too much of it.
Too much?
Yeah. They drink it like soda, basically.
Oh,
and it's
really?
it's really like medicinal. It's like, you're only meant to have just a little bit, because there is sugar in it, and there is caffeine, and so
I didn't know there was caffeine.
Yeah, it's made out of tea. So black tea or green tea. Yeah.
Oh, is that the one with the mother?
Yeah.
Okay, because somebody was making that, showed me, and I'm like, that looks just gross.
Like an alien.
Yeah, it does. It said it eats the sugar.
Yeah.
And I had a friend say, I just tried some and it was terrible. And I thought, well, I'm not even going to try it. And now that I know there's caffeine, I really won't try it.
Yeah. There's caffeine. And usually the ones at the grocery store have more sugar, because people like sweet taste, because they're so used to having a lot of sugar, like sugars and everything. So, but when you make it yourself, you can kind of ferment it longer, and the longer it ferments, the less sugar it will have, because it does eat the sugar. But then generally tastes more like vinegar and people don't like it as much.
Oh, it does? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. No thanks.
Or like apple cider vinegar, that's another fermented food, but with the mother, like the like the unfiltered, unpasteurized one. So, however you get your fermented food is good, and getting some every single day is great to support good gut bacteria and gut health.
Okay. So when people come to you, how long does it take for them to make a change? Do they say, I want to change in 2 days? And you say, no, that's not long enough. So what's the span of
It really
time?
depends, I would say, on many factors, but I think the biggest factor is how much they want to change. So yeah, the desire has to be really high. And I have recently been getting into a lot of, I mentioned neuroplasticity, which is our ability to change our brain. And so I have now learned a way of process or changing habits so fast that it literally only takes a day. But it's like one change at a time. Because sometimes we often, when we're ready to change, it's like we have a laundry list of like, and I want to stop eating sugar, and I want to go to bed earlier, and I want to exercise every morning, and all the things. And I would say that's when we get in our own way, when we try to make too many changes at once, and we try to make big changes. So it's, we can change quickly one at a time when with this process that, because I've tried, all the things in the last 10 years, and from just like very basic habit building stuff.
Yes.
And that was not always effective. Like sometimes it worked when people were just so motivated and ready, and there was just like, they were all in, there was no resistance to changing anything. They had no kind of, what happens is our subconscious mind governs 95% of our habits, behaviors, emotions, beliefs, perspectives, thoughts. So our conscious mind can say, I want to stop eating sugar. And our subconscious mind is like, but I deserve it. But, I need a reward at the end of the day, but it tastes so good. But, all those beliefs and all those even identities of like, but I'm someone who needs dessert at the end of the meal. So even though a 5% of you is like, but it's healthy, and it's healthier to stop, and I want to stop, and I want to lose weight. But if you have 95% of you working against that 5%, it's kind of like being up against a lightweight against like a heavyweight champion. It's like there's no contest.
Yes.
So the change work that I do is really changing your subconscious mind so that there's nothing in the way of making the change you want. Then it's just about, okay, what's the plan? Like, when do you eat sugar? Let's figure out the switch you're going to make. So it can be quite, it's like, if you can do it right and really access the subconscious mind and make the change in your brain, then it's easy. But if you don't make that change, you can probably struggle for 20 years. So that's why it's not, it's really like how you do it. It's not about how long it takes. It's like how, what are the methods that you're using to change. And most people just try to use willpower, which does not work.
No.
So that's ineffective. Or try to muster up motivation and just try to like white knuckle force ourselves to do something. And this is why diets don't work, and why people like yo-yo. It's like we try really hard and we're like, okay, I'm going to do it. And we, force ourselves into these changes in something really extreme. And then it's just like the rubber band effect of eventually it's just too hard to sustain and go back and default back to the old way, and then try again, and then go back, and it's endless.
Yeah, I mean, you need to create a successful environment too in your house.
That's
pantry,
really big.
Refrigerator, get rid of all the junk. Like, don't have it so easy to get to.
Exactly. Environment is huge. It helps a ton. I mean, we are environmental creatures. I always say environment is one of the biggest levers we can pull for behavior change, because our environment is like unconsciously communicating to us all the time, whether we realize it or not. So you're just making it so much harder on yourself if you don't try to support yourself with your environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem is we don't always have control of our environment. So if
Right.
we're out, and that's why we don't want that to be the only thing that we use, it's definitely something we should use. We need other methods as well.
I think it takes planning.
Yeah.
Planning and
definitely.
practice.
Yes, absolutely. Planning is huge, and an effective plan, a plan that's very specific and effective and doable. Sometimes it's like we have these unrealistic expectations and we try to make these like drastic changes that are not sustainable. So it's like making a plan that's actually achievable and allowing it to be a slower process. Sometimes we're impatient. We want the change fast, which that's completely me. I want it yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
You want it
Yeah.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I think we're all like that
I know.
sometimes.
Yeah. And we've kind of been sold that like we can make changes fast. And that's like so many things that we see out there sells this kind of, instant gratification, quick fix, like Band-Aid solution, magic pill.
Yeah.
And, we have to be willing to just stick with something.
Yep.
And
do the
go
work.
slow and incrementally improve and stick with it.
I agree. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you for all of this today. This is just
My
the best
pleasure.
conversation ever.
Awesome. I'm glad you liked it.
Now, where can people find you? And I'll put it in the show notes as well, but where can people find you?
Yeah, so my name basically on all the platforms. So my website is just my name, Donna Skoglund. And then you can find me there on Instagram and on Facebook. So those are the 3 places I would say. And I have a podcast. It's called the Pleasure Project.
Okay.
And so I talk about all of this stuff on my podcast, and I especially about like the mindset stuff, the behavioral change stuff, the emotional work. So
I love it. I love it. And is there anything today that I didn't ask you that you want to share?
Oh my God, there's a million things, but I think we covered a lot. And I think we definitely gave people enough to chew on and start with. And
is there one thing you'd like to share that I didn't ask?
I know I really like what I shared today. I think that it's, I think maybe I would just say change is possible. And I think people get discouraged when they've tried lots of things and they just make it about who they are. And I hear this all the time. I'm just not good at being consistent. I'm just not good at following through. It's just, they make it like part of their identity. And our identity is a big part of what drives change and what drives behavior. So that is a really, really important part of changing, is letting go of our old identity and creating a new one. And that's one of the things I love to talk about too, is evolving how you see yourself and your self-image, because that is going to inform the choices you make and the behaviors and the actions on a daily basis. So let go of the past. Whatever happened in the past was just based on what you knew at the time and the resources you had and the tools. And there are ways to change. And so know that it's possible, and it's not a sentence of, what's happened in the past does not determine your future. So
I love that. Good advice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Donna, for coming on today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. I'll let you get back to your day, and I hope that I can talk to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to.
This was so much fun. So
awesome. Yeah, thank you.
And I will let you go. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.